Thank you to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel. Hey there, I'm Ivan Calderon, and today we're gonna be making a sampled beat using the Atom SQ in Studio One 5. So sampling in many ways is responsible for a lot of the music that we listen to today. Obviously, we know that it's the foundation for hip hop, but since its inception, I think we can all agree that it's also influenced a lot of other genres in music. The way we sample has changed over time, but it's still an amazing craft on its own and a very fun way to create. I personally don't do a lot of sampling myself, but I do want to get back into it. So I thought for this video, why not make a sampled beat using my new favorite toy, the Atom SQ. Before we get started though, I do want to take a moment to thank the sponsor for this video, Sweetwater. Sweetwater is the largest online retailer of musical instruments and pro audio equipment in the United States and the place where I've gotten most of my gear over the years. Not only are they a one-stop shop for all of your studio needs, but they also have amazing customer service. So if you're in the market for a new piece of gear, say maybe a new Atom SQ, then consider heading over to sweetwater.com. Thank you to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video, and without further ado, let's jump right in. Okay, so jumping into Studio One, here I have a sample pulled up, and without doing anything, this is what it sounds like. Woo! Now, luckily for me, this sample has already been stamped with the key and the BPM, so I know that it's an A minor, and it's at 90, and I've already set that here at the bottom. So let's just double check really quickly. And yes, we can verify that it is indeed at 90 BPM. Now, before we get to chopping the sample, I want to actually create the drums first because I find that at least when sampling for me, it is easier to create that melody, that chop from the original sample once you have some drums laid down. So let's go ahead and do that first. Okay, so let's go ahead and mute this for now. Let's move down here to our drums, to our impact. I already have some drum samples pulled up. So let's just record a simple pattern. I'm gonna go ahead and loop this for now. And let's go ahead and go back and add some hi-hats. So usually when creating boom bap, you'd wanna have more of a loose drum groove to kind of create that nice little pocket. I don't think I did a very good performance here. It was way too loose for my liking. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take them all, I'm gonna quantize them to the grid. And then I'm gonna come back and then add the humanized time algorithm. So it still kind of swings them a little bit, it still kind of loosens them up, but it's not as extreme to what I played. So right now, this is what we have. Okay, from here I want some sort of like open hat, so let me just go ahead and look for one real quick. And let's see what that sounds like. Let me just lower the volume because I know it's gonna be way too loud. That's actually not a bad place, but it's way too long. So on the Mac, it's Option, and then you just hover over the end of the clip, and then you can just time stretch it down or time stretch it up. In this case, I'm just making it shorter. That's cool. And then we're gonna place it in the exact same spot on the other end. From here, let's open up these drums again, these MIDI drums, and let me add another open hat, maybe like right here. And then again, right here. Now let's go ahead and add a little bit of a delay on that open hat, that second one. Let's bring this down to here, and let's make it quarter note. Okay, so from here I want to add a little bit more movement. So I'm thinking maybe something like a shaker. And let's add a crash. Okay, from here, let's go ahead and just select all of this, hit Shift D to duplicate, because I do want to use this entire 8-bar loop, and then just select them and create a loop. Okay, perfect. Okay, now that we have our drum set, let's go ahead and mess around with the sample. Now, there are a bunch of different ways to sample in Studio One, but the best way and the easiest way, I think, is to chop up your sample on the arrangement view here, and then send that over to Impact and do what you have to do. So let me show you how I do that. Okay, so this is again the sample. Let me just go ahead and solo that. Now basically what we're going to do here is chop this sample up at the grid, so based on the quantized value of the grid. And what I would recommend you do to get the right value is inspect your sample. If it has a lot of transients, a lot of these like little peaks, then maybe it's best to set a smaller value, something maybe like a 1/16 or 1/8. Now if it's something a little bit more moderate like this, then something maybe like a 1/4 or a 1/2 will work better. Usually I found that 1/2 and 1/4 tends to work well with a lot of samples, but I definitely encourage you to do some experimentation. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do to start chopping this up is to activate the editor mode here on the Atom SQ, and that'll bring up that sample down to the editor window. From there, I'm going to use my Shift key and the 4th encoder to change my quantized value for the grid. I'm going to be using 1/4, but again, you use whatever you think is best. From here, I'm gonna go over to the next page on the Atom and then hit Split at Grid. Next, I'm gonna go back one page, and this is very important. Make sure to hit Create Crossfades, and what this will do is that it'll create crossfades in the beginning and the end of the clips, so that way you don't have any of those nasty pops and clicks whenever you're trying to play them. Finally, the very last step here is to send to Impact. Now basically what happened here is that every single one of those chops got sent over to Impact XT and placed on its own individual pad. Now the original Atom was really great for sampling, but the reason that I love to use this even more is because it gives me so many more pads. As you can tell, we have 16 at the bottom and 16 at the top. And when you have something like this that has a lot of chops, it's easy for me to see all of them in one view without having to go back and forth between banks. Now once here, what you wanna do is click on the first pad, hold the Shift key on your keyboard, then hit the last pad, and go to the top right here and change the choke from off to 1. Now you wanna do this for every single pad that was created. So I'm gonna go over to my bank number 2 and do the same thing. Now basically what we've done here is we've set every pad to the same choke group, meaning that whenever I play a pad and then follow that up with another one, the previous one is cut off and there is no overlapping. Now from here, the last thing to do is basically just play around and see what chops might be usable for the beat. Now the way that I like to do this is I like to play them one by one, and if I come across a chop that I like, I change that pad color to something else just so it stands out on the keyboard. Okay, so I have my pad selected and this is what I have. Now finally, once I'm at this point, the last thing to do is to unmute the drums, play those, and then mess around with the pads until we find something that we like. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, we might have something there, hold on. Now, as far as the sampling goes, this is it. But what I want now is some sort of like keys or something underneath the sample, because if you notice, there's a lot of gaps. And I like that for the sample because it creates this sort of like movement, but I also want to have something underneath that just kind of brings it all together, something that can just wrap around the sample and make it sound cohesive. Now for that, let me go ahead and bring in, let's go to Arturia because I'm currently obsessed with their plugins. And let me bring in, let's do a DX7. Okay, so I think that actually might work, but now we need to figure out what chords to play. Now the way that I do this is I basically play the sample or the chop, and then I kind of just mess around with the keyboard to see what notes fall into place. Now the SQ mix is really easy because you can set it to scale only mode. We already know that we're in the key of A minor, so I have that set. So all these fit into the sample, we just have to figure out what notes fit in what spot. So let me go ahead and just play it for you real quick. Now I'm assuming the first one is going to be an A minor because that's the key that we're in, but let's just figure it out. That changed. So it looks like from what I'm gathering, the two prominent chords in this sample chop that I played is A minor and then a C major. So let's go ahead and record that. Now from here, I'm gonna use my toolbar link down below, and then just kind of perfect these notes a little bit. Set the velocity to 50. Now, this sounds okay for now, but I think I want to invert this chord, meaning that I want to take this bottom note, the bass note, the root note, and send it up an octave. So I'm going to select them all, go over to here, invert up. Much better. Now this is okay, but it's not giving me the vibe that I want just yet. I want it to be more rhythmic, to have more movement. So I think to do that, what I'm gonna do is bring in a tremolator. Let's switch the rhythm up to a fourth. Then let's add maybe like a micro shift to kind of spread it out a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. And then finally, a little bit of texture. Let's add in an RC20. Let's turn the tone down. Okay, so now we just have to basically come up with a bass line. Now for this, I'm gonna go over to my favorite VST for live bass, Moto Bass. Let's bring this down, and let's see what we can come up with. Okay, and I think we are done. This is a beat. So there you have it. That is a sampled beat using the Atom SQ. Now this was actually pretty fun, so I might just go back to sampling more often. Who knows? Now though, I want to hear from you. First, what do you think of this beat? Do you like it? Do you hate it? And then also, if you have an SQ, do you use it for sampling? Or if you don't have one, do you think you could use it for sampling? Let me know in a comment down below. But that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be linking the Atom SQ down below in the description for your convenience. Once again, thank you to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. And as always, like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you're not already, but I will see you on the next one.